about Concord, Sony's newest video game release? Well, you can't play it anymore. We'll talk about what happened. Then our case today, we delve into the world of secondhand instrument sales. Is it okay to buy something for a price much lower than it actually is supposed to be at? Stay tuned, our verdicts are coming up. What you are listening to is real. The parties involved are not cool. They are actual geeks with a case pending in the court of public opinion. The party's case has been dismissed, and the dispute will be settled here on our podcast. There will be no lawyers. There will be no witness testimony. The judge's decisions are final.
Hello, I'm Judge Ivan.
I'm Judge Jonathan, and this is Geeks on Trial. Today's case, Bot for a Song.
Hello and welcome to Geeks on Trial. This is the podcast where we settle petty disputes between actual geeks over movies, video games, board games, and more. If you'd like to submit your own geeky case for a future episode, you can email us at geeksontrial@gmail.com. If you want to help support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/geeksontrial. For just $5 a month, you gain all sorts of fun stuff, early access, fun new shows, and all of that jazz right on over there at patreon.com/geeksontrial. I'm trying to spice it up a bit.
Hey, if you want to get a Geeks on Trial, you gotta go to the Patreon, Patreon, email. You gotta go to the email, send us an email, you gotta go to the Geeks on Trial email Patreon page. Sort of that.
You exhaust me.
Sort of that kind of vibe. I was doing an impression of you.
Yeah, I try to speed through. I don't know why I rush through the opening all the time.
Because it's very boring. It's
true.
Repetitive.
I have to get it's a call to action. I just want to get it out of my face as fast as I can before I start thinking about it, and that's the issue.
Yeah, the trouble with calling to action is the long distance rates.
Oh, you should. That's
action
not a
is
thing anymore.
So far away.
No, all calls are free now.
Well, not if you're roaming.
Oh, I don't. Where are you roaming to? Just use Skype.
Oh,
FaceTime?
The buffalo roam, where the buffalo roam.
So the buffalo roam, where the buffalo roam?
Listen, we have a lot to talk about today. We have a lot to get to. There's a big case coming up, but I did want to talk about something with you before the show starts proper.
Buffalo?
It has nothing to do with buffaloes. In fact, it's a video game subject, so all our video game fans and geeks and nerds out there are going to get a real kick out of this one. Oh, they're excited. Their pants are getting tight. They're real jazzed for this one. What? What is that? I don't even know what that means.
It's because they're getting. Oh, they're fat. They're eating too much. Tight pants.
Okay, I don't want to hear the fat-phobic comments. A couple of weeks ago, Sony released a new video game.
Oh,
that we debated a little bit how to pronounce it. It's Concord. Concord. I think it's Concord.
Conquers?
I think it's Concord. Now, if you don't know about this video game, it was on PC as well as PS5, and it's a hero shooter in the vein of Overwatch. So it's a first-person shooter where it's online, multiplayer, competitive. You choose different characters with different classes, what have you, and you go up against other people online. Now, the reason I'm referring to it in the past tense is because as of this week, the game is no longer available. It came out. Hold on. Let me explain. I'll explain. I understand. Okay. I understand your confusion. I understand this is upsetting for you, but if you just bear with me.
All right.
The game did not do very well at the gate. It had some shockingly low player numbers for a game from such a big studio. I think it was like in the hundreds. And so, not always easy to find an online game to actually play with people. And just a week or two after it came out, Sony said, hey, we are going to take this game offline. We are going to re-explore our options because the initial launch was so negative. Anyone who bought the game will get a refund. If you bought a physical copy of the game, well, you better go return that to the store because we can't help you with that. Good luck. And they did not announce any plans they didn't say, we're going to fix the game. They didn't say we're going to try again in 3 months. They just said it's gone. We'll see what happens.
Better luck next time.
I can't think of any other time in video game history, let alone with such a high profile release. Because this was this is a Sony first party studio game that they've been showing off at their press events for a while now.
Yeah.
Gone now.
weird. So I have views on games that are online only and that you're buying physical copies for, and you have to pay this price because this is what can happen. There was a game that I used to play, the Friday the 13th game. It was on Steam, and they said, we're not supporting it anymore. Bye. And they just shut down the servers, which makes sense. Running a server is expensive on multiple levels, just maintenance, electric. I guess that's basically it.
Spiritual.
It takes a lot out of you. So I'm assuming, I don't know anything about this game. We just learned how to pronounce the game title today together on air here with all of you. Which says big things about this game and its release and all that. But I'm assuming there was zero first-person offline play of anything.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe there was some training mode or something, but yeah.
But nothing substantial enough to like, oh, if I own this game, I can get some money out of it, but not enough to where Sony's like, we're just giving you your money back.
No, there's not like a campaign mode. Right. I don't think it's,
just strictly PvP online kind of thing.
In the vein of Overwatch or, if you're Team Fortress 2, it's like that type of a thing. I mean, you brought up Friday the 13th. Of course, that game went offline like 2 years after it came out, if not more.
Right.
Which is a little different from the next week.
It's different, but like in the same vein, it's like, you're still putting money into this, and like, Nintendo does this with the Splatoon games, but at least Splatoon, but at least Splatoon, you have stuff you can do without internet play, internet connection and stuff like that. So it's like, I'm always a little like touchy about those games that are like just online only. And it's like, in a couple of years, we're not going to support it anymore, which I get. But you're right. After like 2 weeks, that seems like a little bit of a, like they're losing a lot of money in marketing, in producing games and paying people and whatever to just wipe this game clean. But I guess on a marketing boardroom decision level, the plus minus of this is like, well, there's only a couple hundred people currently playing. Why should we still be giving this resources where we can give it to something else? But it also seems like Sony's admitting, or the studio's admitting failure by doing this too.
Very, very much so. I think unambiguously they came out and said, we failed.
Right. But now, okay, so you game more than I do. You're a pro gamer.
I'm a pro gamer,
2 weeks. Yeah. Is 2 weeks, you think, enough time to measure how much a game is? Yeah, you can, like, sure, a Mario game or whatever game, first 2 weeks, it's going to pop. It's going to sell bunches of games. But like 2 weeks for a game that maybe wasn't advertised enough, maybe wasn't pushed enough in the gaming market, you would think it would have to build. Like, it's not a name that like people know. It's not a franchise that has selling power, running power to it. So it's like I feel like maybe give it a month, maybe give it give it a little bit more time to like ramp up word of mouth. But yeah, I don't know.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's exactly how video games work usually. Right. Certainly not. And I mean, the problem is it's, as we said, it's an online multiplayer game. Right. Word of mouth comes from people playing with other people. If you log on and you can't find anyone to play with, there's not going to be any word of mouth. The word of mouth dies right there. Like, it's not going to build a month later. If anything, it's just going to keep getting smaller.
Yeah, but you would think it'd be like, hey, I found this game. I bought this game. Why don't you play it with me? Like, it would build.
Well, this is the other part of this equation is not I don't think it's any fault of, well, maybe it's a fault of marketing, but it's not a fault of lack of marketing. Maybe a fault of the wrong kind of marketing, because most people, I think, a lot of gamers, at least online, were not very enthusiastic about this game. I think because there's a sense that it does just look like an Overwatch clone. That we have a lot of these kinds of games already, and all of them want you to play them only every day forever. Right.
And buy skins and do all that kind of jazz.
Right. Yeah. And people get exhausted and overwhelmed by that kind of thing. I have heard mixed things. I've heard that it's not like a terrible game, but I also don't know that it does anything really special.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, do you think the market right now, like I'm not in the market for buying new games all the time. I'll buy a couple games a year.
Only $40 too, by the way. It was a budget title.
Oh, that's not bad. But I guess online stuff you still have to pay for as a company. But like is there like an oversaturation with like too many games that are coming out right now?
I mean, there always
believe
are.
so.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about.
Well, like, did a bunch of games hit the market the same weekend this came out, or the same?
I think there's been a lot of like Marvel. There's also a Marvel hero shooter in the same vein that's either in beta now or coming out soon, I think. There's always these kinds of games out there, and I think people have just kind of it's like MMOs. At a certain point, it's like there's 2 or 3 that people decided these are the ones we're playing, and it's very hard to now break into that market.
And there's like, we've been gaming for most of our adult and childhood lives, and it's like we've seen plenty of game fail. When you go into Walmart, Target, GameStop, Funko Land, they have a bucket of like $5, $10 games that's like, oh, I've never heard of this, but like, let's pick it up and give it a try. And I think that's something when it's online only like this that you have the problems with, because it's like you can't just, budget title this one too much because you have to have the back end structure for it. And I do think that's like a thing where it's like we're having issues with having all the games hook up to some kind of server like this because, it does take more money to run this kind of stuff. So I understand why they pulled the plug. Maybe 2 weeks would have been a little bit too much, but did they not beta test this and like get numbers? I don't know. Like I said, I don't know anything about like how video games like that work, where like a movie, they would like, give it to a few test audiences, and if it doesn't do well, we'll shelf it. I mean, 2 different things, but
yeah, I mean, we just saw a summer with Borderlands and The Crow, so like, and Horizon, an American saga. So sometimes I think as a company, you have deadlines and you have stockholders, and you just you must release game at certain quarter. You can't work on it forever, even if you think it's not going well. You're hopeful.
You have to get it out, and
you got to hit some. I mean, the crazy thing is that they pulled it back. Only in the modern age now with an online game could you do this. I think if this were a single player campaign game, they wouldn't have done this because there's no point. But this like the game is the online community, which doesn't exist. But I don't know what they do from here, because I feel like the game its reputation now is stained. It's almost a joke because of this. But they, this is a project they spent. We don't know the exact number, but probably in the range of $100 million or more dollars. Not even including, or maybe including marketing and everything.
Actually, I found the actual a shit ton of money on.
There it is.
That's
which I mean, to be fair, Sony could eat that and they'd be fine. But they'd rather not,
Well, and it is technically Sony, but isn't there like another company that like Sony bought out for it? Like it's not a.
It's a studio they own, so
this could like potentially like they own it, but it's like maybe they don't want that, like this group of people could get fired over this. There's that issue
potentially, but that's
with that too.
That's going to happen in today video game industry. That's
they
like,
shut down every. Yeah.
He'll get fired even if the game does well. He'll get fired.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that literally happens all the time now. But yeah, I don't know what they do. Like, do they actually rework this game? Do they scrap it forever and it's just this weird footnote in video game history? Do they try to improve it somehow? What do you do? I don't know.
I have a feeling we're going to see this game in about a year be a free to play. And they're just going
honestly not a bad option.
Riddle it with like, in-game purchases and stuff like that. And that works well for a lot of games. Like, a bunch of the big famous games, like isn't Fortnite technically free?
Fortnite's free. Yeah.
And like they're making money hand over fist with a game like that. So it's like, maybe to recoup some of your losses, give it a year, maybe change a title, work a few things and put it out for free.
Pretend it's a new game. Just like change the graphics and feel like this is a schmond.
But I also feel like too, like, they probably built, let's say, I'm going back to the servers, but they probably built like a giant server farm to house this. Just kind of scale it back. If you get more than 150 people, add an extra like.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how they.
I feel like Sony can have some guy in the back just unplug it. Like, okay, we have this going. Like there are ways to like play this out, or like, okay, fine, this game failed, then we'll just put out another game, which I'm sure they have in holding somewhere just to recoup some loss. Like,
Yeah, well,
But
Astrobot just came out, and that's doing good, I think. But
same company, right?
Sony, still Sony, yeah.
But still, like, to just pull it after, I don't know, 2 weeks seems like too little of time. But I guess it wasn't. I don't know. But
no,
then
I think if anything, it's the other way. They should have delayed it. They should have seen the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
That this wasn't going to go well, and But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you put the genie back in the bottle now. I feel like it's
at this point it's done, unless you really say it's like a free to play or something.
Or at least, like, they could have at least tried, make it free for PlayStation Plus members.
Right.
But I think they just looked at the situation and said, there's no recovering from this.
But you're right, though, because, like, if, like, they've been promoting this game and I'm sure they gave people review copies at some point, you get certain data before you put out a big title like this.
I don't know how that works with online games like this. If they had... Because I don't know, like I'm sure they had, obviously they've had to have tests and server tests and stuff, but I haven't been paying attention enough to know if reviewers, they might have gotten, because if you get an early copy, there's no one to play with but other reviewers. So how do you?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
You might have
to
wait until it goes online with the public. I don't know.
But still, though, like, even if it, like,
probably get hands-on time at a press event or something.
That, and like, you're marketing this game, like, you have to see the writing on the wall. Like, is it not getting the Reddit attention? Is it not getting keyword attention, stuff like that,
yeah, well, I don't know if we'll ever see this game again. It's bizarre,
which I guess, like, they probably just shouldn't just put this on a shelf as a failed thing, and in a couple of years put it out as like a demo for something.
I have no idea. I don't know what they're gonna do. It'll be very interesting to see if and how we hear about this again, but it is unprecedented as far as I know. I can't think of another time something like this ever happened.
Right. It's actually quite wild.
It's quite wild. It's wild. And rumor has it, by the time this episode came out, people might know they're going to announce the PS5 Pro. It sounds like so.
Maybe this can come on it for free.
That's what it is. The PS5 Pro. That's how they entice you. You know that game that failed? It's going to come with Concord,
free
of charge, baby.
Concord,
Censored, I believe it's
censored. It's censored.
I don't know, man. I don't know if any of the dozen or so Concord players out there, let us know how the game went for you.
Are you deeply saddened? And I guess a store has to, like, accept a return, right?
I don't know if they have to.
Because, like, if you bought the physical version and then if you're like GameStop and you found out this game has failed, it's like, what am I going to do with it?
Yeah, but
unless Sony gives them money back.
Sony is refunding if you purchased it digitally.
No, I mean, like, the stores.
The store.
Like, let's say GameStop bought like 25 copies.
Right. But it sounds like, I think that would be too complicated. I think they're just saying if you bought it physically, good luck.
Which is wild too, because like my PS5 still has a disc drive. Like,
I have to assume, though, I don't know the stats on this. Yes, for an online only game that's a multiplayer shooter, I bet those physical numbers are pretty low. It's probably only collectors.
And I wonder why they would put this out on disc if this was this kind of game. I don't know.
It's still, I don't know, because there's those collectors out there. I guess it's got to market. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's more than I think. All right, that's the video game news for the week. We're going to talk about a case.
A case full of video games?
No. In this case, it's a guitar case.
Oh.
Today's guitar case comes to us from the internet. You can find a link in our episode description. Our defendant today is Jim. Jim is a guitarist, and he recently came upon a really good deal on a used guitar. One of his wife's coworkers, George, was selling his late dad's 1952 Telecaster for $4,000, even though the Telecaster could be worth up to $50,000, depending on condition. Jim bought the guitar for that lower price of $4,000, but a few weeks later, George comes back and says he found out the guitar was worth more. Now he wants to buy the guitar back, but Jim is refusing to sell it back to him. And in response, George has now been continually bugging both Jim and his wife at work, trying to get them to change their minds, but they won't budge. As dual judges here on Geeks on Trial, it's our job now to determine whether Jim should have sold the guitar back to him, or if George is acting like a scourge. Scourge.
I don't like it.
A scourge.
Concord.
The world of used guitars.
I guess it makes sense because, like, I was thinking, like, what instruments do you buy used? Like, I wouldn't buy a used mouth instruments like a horn or anything. As I said, mouth instrument, it was gross in my.
They must be sold though. I'm sure
they are because like in school we rented instruments for band class. So
I'm sure there's a method to clean them.
Yeah, I'm sure maybe not, but like you always hear about guitars being sold and bought, and there's a market for old guitars because they sound better and they hold up better. They are made better.
They're easy to sell and transport and carry around.
Right. Yeah. And unlike pianos and stuff too. But
which you do see a lot of I think pianos sometimes get sold cheap because they're just like, please take it. It's a pain in the ass.
So there's we're in the market to buy a home, our first home.
Me and you.
And yep, us. It's going to be the Geeks on Trial headquarters home. And all the time on Facebook, I keep looking at like pianos and stuff because they're free. Like there's like baby grand pianos for free, but it costs like thousands of dollars to get them moved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you can have it because we don't want to take it with us and we can't just leave it in this home. So if you want a free piano, come and get it. And like, we keep thinking about it. We're like, want to get a free piano? It's like, how do we move a piano? Like,
all you got to do is
difficult.
move it. There are small ones, but yeah.
There are. You can get like those upright pianos that just go against the wall. Those would be cool to have.
Sure.
Then you have to pay to get a tune. Do you play no instruments, right? I don't believe you play an instrument.
I'm a guitar player. I'm a piano player. Mm-hmm. I'm a whistler.
Oh.
No, I
whistle in the dark, right?
I whistle in the dark. Yeah. I also whistle when I work too.
Oh, good for you.
I do. I mean, yeah, I have a keyboard. I have an electronic keyboard.
Well, we all have a keyboard. That's how we type letters.
That's funny. That's true.
Yeah,
I'm talking about it's like the instrument, the music kind of a
piano keyboard.
Of a keyboard. Sometimes I dabble on there. I can't say I'm a piano player, but I've played with it.
You've
before.
Played a piano. Okay.
I have. I went through a very brief guitar phase.
I feel like every
minutes long.
Like teenager, like were you a teen or like in college?
But I think my sister had a guitar and then she didn't want it anymore, and then I tried to kind of play around with it a little bit, but I didn't go anywhere.
I feel like everybody in like their teen years have like picked up some kind of guitar, and it's like, because I have a guitar in storage, can't play it.
A ukulele.
I have a ukulele as well.
Do you have a 1952 Telecaster?
I have two of them actually.
Clearly, this is like the
it's like a high end
Ferrari of guitars.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure my guitar was its first act, which is like a Walmart brand guitar that just you give a kid to shut him up.
Yeah,
here you go.
That's kind of a bad choice because they're gonna make more noise with the guitar.
Well, it's better.
I played. Shut him up, give him a harmonica, just right in the mouth.
He's right. I played drums. I was a drummer in school bands. That's what I did. I played the snare drum and the big bass drum that you hit on the sides. Did that for a couple years, but that's about it. Yeah, no, really. School bands.
That's really cool.
No.
Wow.
But yeah, so neither of us are really like, musicians or anything like that.
Perhaps we're perusers of the secondhand market of other objects.
I love me a secondhand store, a secondhand market. I love going to like a thrift shop and finding. Actually, I do that with cameras. I buy a lot of my 35 millimeter film cameras at thrift shops, and it's fun to see what they have. But it's becoming a weird marketplace of like now people are aware of what they're selling. So it's like you used to be able to go to a thrift shop or like a garage sale and get like, oh, this is like an $80 camera for $5, and that's when you just give them $5 and say have a good day. And now it's like, oh, people know what they got.
Well, it's always the thing you see of like the garage sale or the yard sale where it's like this person didn't know they sold me this extremely rare NES game for $5 and it's like the prize jewel of my collection now. That's what you're always hoping for.
And it's big with like collector card games too and stuff like, oh, I found my son's or comic book collection. Mm-hmm. Here, I found this box of old comics. Do you want the whole box for $5? And there's like a.
Yeah, there's a golden window at one point where you could do that. I think maybe with some things you can. Comic books, I think, it's too well known now that they're worth money, or at least.
And I think
old ones.
everyone thinks that they have a expensive comic book collection. So it's like, oh, this is expensive. And they take it to the shop and it's like, I'll give you 10 cents for all 400 of them.
Well, do you remember Beanie Babies?
I do. I still have a box of them somewhere.
Oh yeah, I don't have any of mine anymore, but that was certainly they lied to us for many years, or we lied to ourselves. I had a collector's handbook that told me how much my Beanie Babies were worth. Yep. I remember as a kid going through and being like, wow, I've got like $300, which at the time was, more money than I could even imagine.
Yeah, it's a console.
God, I don't know how much a Beanie Baby even cost, like $5 or something. But
they're probably face value.
It made no sense. Like, why would I have because some of them the guide, you don't have a guidebook if they don't have inflated prices. Right. But why would this thing already be worth $50 or $100 if it's like it came out like 6 months ago? It doesn't make sense.
Well, the guidebook was also sold by the same company.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure at least one of them was.
Now, did you ever go down the baseball card rabbit hole?
No, God, no.
I had family members who would buy me like packs of baseball cards, or like you get like an entire year's roster of baseball cards. That I recently looked them up during pandemic when everyone was looking up all their cards, and I think they cost like $4 for an entire box. Like it's
the interesting
thing
is
more space.
These things that have the collectible value like that kind of have stopped because the reason they are valuable is because at the time nobody thought they were valuable.
Right.
So you would buy a baseball card and just give it to some kid and he'd throw it in the trash, or he'd feed it to his dog or whatever.
Or use it on like the spokes of his bike to make a motorcycle, like that kind of thing. It's so that was
now, and that so they became scarce.
Right.
And same with comic books, X-Men, like Superman #1 didn't come out and they were like, holy shit, guys. Right. You were rolling it up, you were ripping pages out, it was like a disposable thing.
Exactly.
And now new comic books or new baseball cards, it's just they print enough, they're like aware of that people might want them, that it's
that was a big thing from I feel like the 90s was your collectors mecca. That
was kind of the boom.
Those freaking the state quarters that everyone had to have that were coming out that like now it's like on eBay they're like, oh, what are they worth? A quarter. Like their face value is 25 cents. But it's like I remember I think my grandmother had like an entire book that she had where she would get each state quarter, put it in there because she thought it was going to be worth something. And then we just found them and they're worth nothing.
I think they're worth 25 cents each.
Exactly. Yeah, that's basically it. Or like even because it was around that time too that the Pokemon cards were coming out, and it was like we would get the golden one from Burger King, or McDonald's did their own Beanie Babies thing. Like there's so many things that were produced to make us think, well, at this age, at mid-30s, we're going to be sitting pretty on these things where it's, no, Ty from the Beanie Babies Corporation is just a millionaire now.
Right. Trading card games might be an exception to this, though. I mean,
certain ones.
Some of those cards are still worth pretty good money.
Well, the game itself, but not all the tchotchkes and stuff that went along with it, like the golden Pokemon card or stuff like that.
Specifically talking about, the actual game cards, because those are still printed to encourage this kind of thing.
Right. And the ones from earlier generations, we didn't know as kids that oh, these are going to be collectible. So we're playing them. We threw them in our backpacks. It's same thing with video games too. Me and Danny went to a video game store, a used video game store in Manhattan. And there's a Pokemon, let's say Pokemon Yellow. They're selling for $3,000. I'm like, I bought that for $25. I threw it in a backpack with food and there was stuff it's wild.
I still remember, they had you could buy Pokemon card singles when I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
the collector's market was a thing. It just wasn't.
Do you have any collections? Anything that
We've
you
definitely talked about this before.
We have, but do you have a prize? There's one thing that's in a safe that I know is worth something.
I don't think so.
Neither do I.
I mean, I have some video games that are worth some money.
But I do have. I have my original Mario DDR, which apparently with the pad, apparently that's worth some cash. But other than that, it's I still I would play it. I'm not.
Yeah. I don't have anything crazy, no baseball cards. I think I've got some Pokemon cards somewhere. I don't know if they're worth anything. Some GameCube games have a decent going rate. That game Drop Mix is worth some money now because they don't print that anymore. This was a music game.
That was a fun game too. I enjoyed that game. Now, is there anything that you like? Do you secondhand shop? Do you buy used items, or is that like an ick to you?
An ick?
Is that your ick?
We've definitely talked about this before too, but I not too much. I mean, I sell some of my board games here and there on Facebook or on eBay, and video games. I've sold other like random electronics, just stuff I don't need anymore. I've sold through eBay. But yeah, I'm not. I only digital. I'm not really looking at, like you were mentioning, like actual in-person thrift stores, or I'm not stopping at flea markets or yard sales because I'm very lazy and I don't want to go outside.
Well, it's a fun activity too. Like if you want to go shopping and stuff, and you don't want to look at anything new, it's like, oh, we can go look at like some old stuff, some stuff that we want, or we might be like actively looking for. We've bought in like used laptops and stuff, and my partner's in IT, so it's like he can like I bought this $7 laptop and add 1 or 2 parts to it. Now it's like a brand new gaming computer. Like, so it's like that kind of stuff where it's like projects for us. We'll do used cars. I buy my cars used.
Sure. There's just so much stuff in this world. Like, I feel like in the 90s, the idea of going to a garage sale when I was a kid, because sometimes, someone on our street would have a yard sale or whatever, and it'd be like, oh, they're selling like VHS tapes and this is cool. And that was fun. But now it's like, I have so much, everyone just has so much stuff.
That's why everyone's having yard sales and eBay auctions.
I know. And then I'm like, who's going to buy, like, do you really need whatever, I don't know, I guess, like once you buy one set of bowls or you get like one chair, like how many times do you need to buy those from whoever's selling?
Yeah, you and I are definitely not the people who are like, oh, I need to, it's this different season. Let me get my fall bowls out, or I need to redecorate my place to get,
I guess you might just want a change of pace at some point.
To an extent, I think. But like, there are definitely certain things that's like I will and won't buy, but it's never anything like this kind of money. Like if I'm spending money on a guitar or a video game I'll buy it new. Movies. My big thing is like I'll buy used Blu-rays because Blu-rays hold up a lot better than DVDs because I think they have an extra scratch layer on them or something like that. But I'll go to a thrift shop and walk out with like 20 Blu-rays that I paid like $10 for. So it's like I'll do stuff like that.
Used CDs as well.
That
vinyls.
Too.
I don't do vinyl, but that's a big one. Yeah. I mean, the guitar makes sense. Also, in this case, the Telecaster here, they're not making it anymore.
Right. This is something that's old. That's out of print. Like, we mentioned video game consoles, stuff like that. I bought a used NES. Stuff like that. So it's like, but do you do your due diligence? Do you do your research on this kind of stuff when it's like, when you're at a store? Do you like whip out your phone and like, oh, I can get this cheaper?
I definitely do that.
I did this. I'm not going to lie to you. I did this like this week. I was at Barnes & Noble. I just walked into Barnes & Noble, just seeing what they had. I peruse every now and then. And there's a book I haven't read, but I've seen the movie, the original Frankenstein book.
Sure. We didn't.
Barnes & Noble.
Maybe we talked about that in our sidebar episode about books we read in high school.
Sure. It was like, they were selling it for like the $10 for the fancy like Barnes & Noble edition that has like the gold etching on it and stuff. And I'm like, let me just pop onto Amazon and see if I can get this new for cheaper. I mean, $10 isn't bad. Yeah, I got it for $3 on Amazon new.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if we're talking about Barnes & Noble, I go there to see how much cheaper it is on Amazon.
Yeah. It's a different store.
Even when physical bookstores were common, Barnes & Noble has always had like the highest prices.
Well, that's why I start at the bargain section and then I work my way around.
Yeah. But like, there's I have a used video game store in town, and I've definitely been in there and seen a game and gone, let me just look on eBay and just to make sure that this isn't some kind of a ripoff or it's like at least somewhat close to fair. I'm not like looking at 80 different sites, but
no. I'll pop on like Amazon or eBay. But if it's like, okay, it's $5 here in person, I'm holding it in my hands. Like if it's a $5 difference, I'd rather give that $5 to the local game shop. But
and
if it's
convenience.
Yeah.
shipping.
But if it's like, oh, this is $300 and I can get it on Amazon for 10, it's like, well.
Also, I mean, that's the thing is, now with smartphones, it's much harder to get away with not knowing.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
or for like scamming people.
Either way, yeah. If you're trying to sell the stuff for more than it's worth, people are going to know. And if you're trying to buy it for less than it's worth, they're going to know. Like, you can everyone has access to this in their pocket to know exactly how much everything's worth all the time.
And I've had apps on my phone where it's like you scan the barcode and it'll tell you get it here cheaper. Like, there's apps that tell you where to go. Like,
yeah. So it's actually the most surprising thing about this case is that George, who's selling the guitar, is so, according to the case, he says that he looked online and saw $4,000. I don't know where he saw this or what the deal was. Maybe it was like a bad condition one, or he just looked at some link somewhere and said, okay, yeah, I guess that's how much it's worth. Some more details from the case. We know that it was his, it belonged to his father who passed away, but apparently there wasn't like a real sentimental value. He doesn't play the guitar. It's not like they played the guitar together or anything like that. So for him, maybe he just, well, you get those two-handed.
One person does the strings, one person does the, okay.
This might have just been, it sounds like a case of he had a bunch of his dad's stuff and
I need to clear it out
to get rid of it. So he wasn't really, he probably had his mind on other stuff. Is what happened. You mentioned like cameras. Is there any other? Do you feel like you have gotten away with a real steal of buying something like that before?
Not really. Like we've said before, like maybe with like computers and stuff. Like because we can go to we went to a flea market a couple years ago that used to be local. They're closed now, and there was this older guy, maybe between 50 and 70, like that age range. He was selling laptops. He had a price on it that was like super low, and knowing your craft, like my partner does IT work. He's like, oh, can I fire this up and see what was on it? And Danny looked at me. He was like, yeah, I could. You can definitely make this like a couple $100 computer if we wanted to turn around and sell it. So we just bought it, and that was like maybe the biggest thing, computers and stuff like that, because a lot of times people will be like, oh, it's just the computer doesn't work anymore. I'm going to sell it for just something.
Right.
When it's like something basic, like, oh, you could just get a new battery for it. But even camera wise, like there's been a few lenses that I'll buy that it's like, oh, I think I got a good deal on. But you also don't want, because I still like actively use these. So it's like, I don't want to, I don't know. I want to look it up and make sure I'm not getting ripped off too. Like, oh, why is this so cheap? Is this like an off-brand Canon? Like, is this from like a wish.com,
right,
kind of thing? How about you?
Yeah, not really. I don't have any real tales of this. What you really need to find the old people. They're the ones who are going to be the ones who don't pay attention. Or
like, I feel like because we do live on the coast. Like, I feel like the more you go into like where there's barns and like Midwest kind of stuff, it's where people are just kind of clearing out stuff. Or you go to like a estate sale where it's like you can buy this entire room or like a storage unit for X amount of money.
Show. Isn't that a show where they buy a storage unit?
20 shows that did that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I also do kind of get from the other perspective, like, again, with selling my board games or whatever. Sometimes it's like, I know I'd like to sell this for $50, but if someone offers 30 and it's like, the alternative was it was just sitting here.
Well, that's what because I've never sold anything. I've done flea markets when I was younger, like a family flea market when we were moving or whatever, or a yard sale. But like you actively are selling things.
I've done it.
Board games, usually, some technology stuff.
Video games. I've sold.
Do you go like over in your head, like, oh, I want to make sure, like, oh, am I selling this for too cheap? Am I like will you like look online and do your research to make sure this isn't like a rare thing that you're selling? Or
yeah, for sure. I mean, okay. I do just it's not too hard. Like you do a quick glance at eBay, basically. eBay really is the great like universal leveler for selling stuff because it's like,
and just to make sure it's not a rarity or something like that.
Yeah, and usually it's just like, okay, I'll probably put it at, $5 less than whatever the next one is, and hope.
Oh, see, that's interesting because I've usually heard with like, let's say Facebook Marketplace or anything like that, people will usually go like, okay, it's a $50 thing, I'm going to put it on for $60 because people are always like,
they'll haggle.
Oh, I'm not paying that.
Right. It depends. I think Facebook is different. At least it's different in how I use it because when I'm selling board games on there, it's like usually a bulk listing or something.
Right.
Whereas eBay, it's like you literally type in the name of the item and you'll see they're all right next to each other. So it's harder to get away with being like, it's a little whatever.
Right.
Because it's like
there's
you
a
can
few
just
things
see the prices.
With those sites, like I hate on eBay when it's like, oh, you can get this for $10 and the shipping is like $400. It's like, wait a minute,
right? There's always that
flipped it around,
kind of thing,
or like,
the shipping is free and it just is more expensive, and they're like, oh, but free shipping, but it's all kind of the same
that way it
price.
pops up because it pops up first in your search thing. Because I think if you could go by free shipping, and then the other thing on Marketplace, which I hate, people will list stuff for free, and then you go into the thing and they're like, offer me the best amount of money, and I'm like, free.
But I'm assuming, if you happen upon a deal like this, your first instinct is not to go to the seller and say, hey, I think you should know you're really undervaluing this.
Yeah, and I feel like I've watched those like the Pawn Stars shows before, like those different shows that are like on TV where people sell and buy things for a living, basically on TV. And it's like I always feel bad because like, should I, like, if I bought something in this case that was thousands of dollars different.
I mean, this is a big difference. Yeah,
this is, and it's like, would I feel guilty? And it's like, maybe not, because in this case, George, I think it was George, asked, like, he's like, give me a price. You give me a. So it's not like George was like, I'm giving you 4,000. That's all I want. So he was like, he offered Jim, like, you set the price and then we'll go back and forth there. So that is always a better way to do this, instead of being like, I'll give you a number, because at the end of the day, you want to make a deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and now it's not someone he knows well, but it is someone who works at the same place as his wife.
Yeah.
I do feel that's a little, because they both know, Jim and his wife know this thing's worth money. We're getting a steal on this. It does kind of feel different from if you're just at a garage sale with some stranger.
Or see it on Facebook. Like, it's somebody. Yeah.
It's not a close friend, but it is someone that she's going to see every day.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you and bring up. Is there any situation where you wouldn't buy something from somebody? Like, me personally, I don't think I would buy, like, family members, friends, like because like, God forbid, because when you buy something used, pre-owned, whatever, there is that thing of, there's no warranty. This could break. You don't know how often they used it. And then if it's like, oh, if I bought, something from you and it breaks, I'd be like, well, give me my money back. It broke. Like, there's like, you don't
want to invite the potential for conflict.
Right. And when it's somebody you don't know, like if it's a flea market, somebody on Marketplace, whatever, it's kind of like, well, I don't know them. I got either scammed, or not even just scammed. Like, you don't have to take any responsibility because you don't have to see this person. You don't have to do whatever. And that's both parties, because there's always going to be that, as we learned in this case, that issue of like, oh, you screwed me over. And then there's going to be like somebody you have to see every day and hound them, where it's like, if it's a flea market, you can kind of just get lost and never see them again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I would, if someone's like, hey, since I know you can buy this thing for half of what it's worth or something. Like, I would probably buy it. And, I would just expect, I would understand I wouldn't buy something that cost enough money that it would that I would be upset if something happened to it.
Right. But also,
like, I wouldn't buy like a used car from a friend, probably. Maybe I would. I don't know. Right. But like, yeah, like a video game or a board game or some other appliance or something. Right. I would assume I wouldn't spend a small enough amount that if what you said happened, if that situation occurred, I'd be fine just being like, we're friends. I don't care. I'll let it slide.
But like, because there's like, it was on recently, like there's an I Love Lucy episode where it's like, oh, chocolates. They bought when they just come shoving chocolates.
So funny.
No, they bought the washer and dryer. The Mertzes brought the Ricardo's washer and dryer
for the 1952 Telecaster guitar.
Yep. Oh yeah. Huh. And it broke, and they were like, oh, you need to give us money back. And it was a whole 30-minute romp of funny and hilarity. It was a great episode.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds funny.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, but we're also like smart. Like we use computers. Like we would do like smart in this kind of thing where it's like we would do our like homework and like look it up online. And I also feel like would you like if somebody was selling you something and if you were George, would you be like it's worth 40,000, or would you be like nope, gotta go and just run away?
You mean if I was Jim?
No,
buying the guitar.
No, if you were. Oh, Jim was buying the guitar, right?
That's right. Yeah. No, I know it's complicated. Their names are very similar. Unfortunate,
George,
but that's their
Jim.
names. I didn't make them up. That's their names. We don't change the names on this show. Yeah, I don't know because that's a big difference.
That is.
Like if it was even like $1,000 is still a lot of money.
Right.
But I might still.
Well, depending on how much you spend, but
and depends like what it is. Yeah, like if it's if I think it's really worth 1,000 and they're selling it for 500, I'm probably going to be like, oh, that's a steal. I'm taking it.
Right.
We're talking about a difference of $46,000 potentially. I mean, at least tens of thousands of dollars.
Right. I mean, a life-changing amount of money.
Potentially, yeah.
Like buying a car or two amount of money. Like,
now, I feel like it's very easy to say like, oh, I'd be a good moral person and do the right thing.
But
I don't know that I would.
Yeah.
But it does feel like I would at least, I don't know. It depends because it depends also on how, is this a thing I really want? Like the guitar, I don't really care about, but if it's some mythical video game that's like a rare treasured thing that I've wanted
that you've been wanting all your life, and it's like you could never afford. Right.
Then maybe I wouldn't tell him. I might just go for it.
Because on one hand, is it the person who's selling it's mistake for not digging deeper and just going, yeah, I'll take the $4,000. And it's like, well, you have the same amount of intelligence, same amount of tools that I have. Now, unless, it's like it was a guitar dealer or store, different story. But it was like you and I both have the same internet, the same access to the to type in, especially a telecom. Like this is a big named thing. Mm-hmm. This isn't like it was like, just some obscure video game that nobody knew about or something. Like this is a big named, big ticket item. You would think you would go through and do some stuff. Now, I have a feeling like if he were to go back and be like, hey, this is worth $40,000. I'll give you half of that for it. The person selling would be like, no, I want $40,000. Like in the back of my head, that's would happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if maybe he should have been suspicious when he just agreed to the first price right away.
And didn't clap back. I'd be like, oh, wait, what? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if it were a friend, that changes things for sure. But this is just like an acquaintance. Now, there's another part to this case that we haven't mentioned, which is that apparently after this incident, not only was George bugging both of them about the guitar, they got a restraining order against him. It became an issue. Yeah, he was leaving messages, harassing his wife at work and all this stuff. Which, I feel like that's clearly wrong behavior, but I think that's after the fact of what we're discussing.
Now, I know we are a court of law.
Yeah.
But do you think this subject, could be taken to a real court of law? Like, do you think there
Sounds
are
like
any...
it was. Well, at least not, I guess not the initial subject.
No, but the stalking and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But do you think this would be taken seriously in a small claims court? I'm thinking no.
No,
because for all the cases, for all the things that I'm saying, is you and I both have the same amount of information. Now, once again, if this was a store, if you took this to a store and they are supposed to be a reputable guitar place, maybe you can have a little bit of legal action potentially. I don't think I ever would. It would just be oh, I'm an idiot. I screwed up. But I don't think this could be. I don't know. It's a very weird situation.
You sell something. They agreed on it. You didn't steal it. There's
a hand was shaken.
Really have any recourse.
Right.
If you want to buy the western half of the United States for some beads and some corn or whatever.
Right.
Whatever they did back in the
Joke's
day.
on you. Right. Buffalo.
Yeah, that's a little different because they didn't have smartphones back then, or they would have Googled what is this state worth,
Wait, what?
Yeah. Smartphones didn't come about until around the Revolutionary War.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Buffalo powered. Yeah. So it's weird. It is very unusual. Like, I don't think the way he reacted to this is great. That's
Clearly.
why, like I said in the beginning, like, I don't know if I would do something, like, if it was something. Friends are different. But when it's a coworker or someone you're just like seeing on a daily basis and they start like hounding you every day over this money, it's like, no, dude, you kind of fucked up. Like, you said you looked online.
I would fall into a deep depression if I did this, though. If I knew that I sold this, if I had sold this guitar for tens of thousands less than it was worth, I mean, I would be.
Well, that's why for anything, I over research for the kind of stuff. Like, anything I purchase, it's like, oh, if I'm buying a used car, it's like, okay, well, I can get it here for a little bit cheaper. Well, what's wrong with it? Like, there's that kind of like, because you don't want to be kicked in the gut later and have that like that feeling of like, oh crap, I could have like made off with some money and been doing well and stuff like that. But would I ever like attack? No, I wouldn't. Like,
you wouldn't
try to like
harass and stalk and harangue someone for months on end.
No, because I just like sell some other stuff. Like, you screwed up. It's fine. You learned your lesson. Maybe you should have researched more. But also, like, I wouldn't have sold it without doing more research, especially like older items. Like, this was like something that came out in the last 20 years. Fine. But you had to know this is like a 50s thing.
Well, I think we've reached a verdict.
Lead the way, sir.
All right. I think it's pretty clear cut. The gray area in this one comes from the relationship between George and Jim. And I think that it is, although, were I in George or his wife's or Jim's or his wife's shoes, my only thing is I might have thought this was a bad idea to buy this guitar just because if he did find out what it was worth, and he did, that even if he wasn't a creep about it, it's still going to be probably pretty awkward to be like, hey, wasn't that funny how I bought that guitar for so cheap? Yeah. Like, I would have, I don't know. It seems like maybe not the greatest plan, but I get it. And it's not, I don't think he did anything technically wrong, because I think the relationship is distant enough that this was the offer made. He saw an opportunity. He leaped at it. This is the nature of the second hand market. This is how these things go. If you don't know what you got, then it's gone. So I say Jim is not guilty.
There's not much more I can add on to that, minus saying, just don't buy things from, if you're going to lowball somebody like this, which is what they did, then don't do it to somebody you personally know or somebody who can like track you down, because, it is kind of a shitty thing to do to be like, hey, I know this is worth this amount of money. And maybe even like not even like a half, like this is like many fractions less amount of money that he could have gotten for this. But as we discussed in depth, you both have the same amount of information. Sure, one person might be a guitar player versus one not being a guitar player, but Google and eBay are your friends whenever you're selling things. And I would have to say, even more so with all of the allegations and like harassment and all that, Jim's not guilty of anything. Well, that's not true. He might be guilty of something. We don't know. We're not clearing you of all.
No. The next week is his murder trial.
Right. This is the guitar trial, but he used the guitar as a murder weapon with the old El Kabong.
That's the whole thing. Yep. You got to get that kabong, baby.
Got that kabong.
Oh, yeah. I love to smoke out of that El Kabong. You know what I'm talking about? Weed.
No. Oh.
I love to toke up on this bong.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Pass that bong.
That's a you just put the whole, that's not a bong.
Oh, dude. Oh, man. Huh. Oh, this is strong. What is that, sativa or indica, dude? We need to assign a punishment.
It's Splenda.
A sentence. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. We need to do we need a sentence. We need to assign a sentence to George for. We've determined he's guilty. He's in the wrong for being upset about having sold this guitar. You fucked up, George. I mean, honestly, George already lost a lot of money.
Right. I would say, George, it's an educational thing for him. He has to go research all guitar prices. He has to become an expert on guitar prices and really have it like sink in.
I think Beanie Babies. I think he should have to scour. I think he's not off the hook. He's not officially
off the hook?
He's not off the hook from this case or our verdicts until he has a complete collection of every Beanie Baby in existence.
Or to tie it in for last week's episode, Magic cards. He has to go find every single Magic card.
Might be. Come on, that's a task that is beyond him, I think. I don't even know if it's possible.
Right.
Beanie Babies is probably challenging.
And, and state quarters. We'll throw the state quarters.
Okay,
that could be
and the state quarters, sure.
State quarters.
You can probably buy those in one sweep somewhere.
You just go to a bank and, can I have these? Sure.
Yeah, they're giving them away over there. Let us know, folks at home, if you're watching or listening to this show right now. That's available in 2 formats, if you didn't know. You can send us an email.
Audio?
geeksontrial@gmail.com. And you can let us know what you think about this. How do you feel? Have you ever been on either side of a case like this? Have you sold something for less or more than it's worth, or bought something for less or more than it's worth? Talk to us. Same place you can go if you want to submit your own case, whether it be about the world of collectibles or movies or video games or some other geeky hobby that you have. Send it to us. We will settle it for you on the air. We'll change your names to protect the innocent, unlike with Jim and George. That's their real names. You can also find a handy-dandy link in our show notes, and you can use that as a little form there if you'd like to submit a case that way instead.
And if you want to help us build our collections, we collect money. So help us collect money by sending us your money via Patreon. That's patreon.com/geeksontrial. It'll help us add to our collection of money and other money things. But hey, you get a collection with that. You get a collection of back episodes of Geeks on Trial Sidebar. There's a bunch of episodes out there now. They come out twice a month, and you gain early access to this show and the audio show, or the audio show and this show, depending on how you're listening. And Jonathan, where can people find you when you're not collecting?
Yeah, my money collection not going so great.
Yeah. Actually quite the opposite. I keep giving my collection away.
I know. I don't know what it is. I'm always trading my collection away for other things. If you want to follow me online, you can. Just head on over to jonathanestis.com. You'll find links to all the other stuff I do on the internet. Like my other podcast, The Yerky Boys. Next week, we are going to be covering the final book of the Animorphs series.
Wow.
So if you didn't want to ever listen to any of the other ones, you just want to jump right in at the end and find out what happens, you can.
Hey, that's a collection you guys have.
I mean, I don't have, in my mind, I have the collection. I don't physically own the books. He does. My other co-host does.
Oh, he does actually have. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. How about you, buddy?
Oh, I have a brand new episode of The Snack Guy that just came out this week.
Whoa.
I review a box that was sent to me from britishbox.site.com, whatever. It is a box of British treats. It is a long episode.
Wow.
It's a 30-minute snack guy that's over at youtube.com/The Snack Guy. So you can go watch me try some weird British treats like the Cadbury Flake Bar.
Beans on toast?
Yep. It came with a bucket of beans and a bucket of toast.
Yeah. Maybe some bangers in the mouth.
Yep. And they were all bangers.
Wow. That's kind of a spoiler.
Yep. And until next time, I'm Ivan Hahn.
And I'm Jonathan Estes. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Case closed, mate.